But in terms of who's my wide receiver one now, I'd say in Dynasty, I'm taking Ted, just because I had him and Luther so close, and the landing spots kind of divvied up for me. And Luther Burden landed with, in a great landing spot with Ben Johnson, to be honest. But like I said, I didn't know that they'd get my tight end one as well. So that changes things. There's a lot of mouths to feed there while the opportunity is wide open in Carolina. Xavier Legette is not good. Adam Thielen is washed. They got nobody for the most part. And I believe Bryce was touting for Tet as well. So I think that's going to be good chemistry wise for Bryce. Bryce hasn't had a wide receiver one before, and the Panthers have never drafted as productive of a receiver as Tet ever, or at least in recent memory. I've hated pretty much all of their picks, the Panthers, the last few years. So I think this is a great pick for them. Obviously, wide receiver is a huge need. But like I said, so CJ's got Travis, wide receiver one. I would take Tet, wide receiver one. And the reason for that mostly being is the opportunity. Not only that, but Tet, I had pre-draft, I had Tet over Travis. He's a better true receiver. McMillan is a better true receiver than Hunter is. But the reason Hunter's going higher is because he plays two positions, so he's going to get that higher draft capital. But if Travis was drafted as just a receiver, would he be taken over Tet?
Yes,
I'm asking you.
I think so. Yes, I think he's a better overall receiver.
I think
he was just drafted
very close.
I think these are all just hypotheticals because we're saying if he was only drafted as a receiver, that'd be if he only played receiver in college. Which I think if he had a real coach, wasn't coached by someone's father, and had real coaching, went to LSU, Ohio State, whatever, he's more toolsy than Ted is. I think he's a way better athlete. I wouldn't say way better athlete, but a better athlete. And I think Travis is especially in that offense where Cohen, they're going to be creative. They're young. They're going to do a bunch of crazy shit over there. I don't know. I'm into Travis right now as my receiver one. I'll bet on the talent and the landing spot.
Yeah. I mean, betting on that's the thing that I say too is bet on talent over the situation. Situation usually doesn't mean as much as you think it does. Usually it's blown out of proportion after the draft. Trevion moves up, everybody moves back. Dylan Sampson's out of the second round now. So I would just take the landing spots with a grain of salt, kind of, and just not worry so much about it. But this Travis Hunter landing in Jacksonville, I think is that is impactful that he's playing with Brian Thomas Jr. You have to think about that. Tet is not playing with Brian Thomas Jr. No one even close to Brian Thomas Jr. And Luther, I actually think all these guys, I'd put one after another, Tet, Luther, Travis. Luther got a great landing spot. Ben Johnson is going to know exactly what to do with Luther, and then know exactly what to do with Loveland. And I'm not so high on Odunze. I don't think Odunze is that great. DJ Moore is obviously their wide receiver one, but he's 28. So when Burden's rookie contract is up, he'll be 32. Someone's going to be the alpha in that offense. And I'm going to bet on either Burden or Loveland. And if it's either of them, I'm you win. So if you can get Ben Johnson's leading pass catcher for Caleb Williams, win. So I'm kind of betting that Burden eventually will take on a bigger role, or Loveland will take on a bigger role, or they both will. So Ben Johnson obviously has experience with a tight end one in Laporta and experience in a wide receiver one in Amon-Ra. And obviously Jameson Williams too had his production as well in Detroit. So the wide receiver too can produce in a Ben Johnson offense even. So that is intriguing to me. I still would probably I would not doubt, I would not be surprised if Luther has a better career than McMillan. Still, I had him wide receiver 1 pre-draft, and I still am kind of like wishy-washy about it. They're neck and neck for me. They're very different receivers, obviously, but even like CJay said, those outside X receivers aren't like the thing anymore. It's more these, yards after the catch guys, these stop on a dime and go guys. Like these guys are the ones that are becoming elite in our game today. So, that's pretty much my take there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of validity to, an offensive mind like Ben Johnson, hand selecting his guys, getting them in there. In particular, Luther Burden, who is so good after the catch, who the big criticism was, it's just all designed looks and getting in that. Well, nobody designs that type of yak stuff better than Ben Johnson. We were just talking about Liam Cohen being a master of it. Ben Johnson might be the only guy actually better at that. You see what Amon-Ra has done. He learned also with Cooper Kupp as well. He's part of that organization too. And so he's great at that layup stuff. So it does become like, if Burden is clearly going to be that slot guy, maybe not in year one, DJ Moore probably has it, but hey, you never know. The question becomes, they talked a lot about 12 personnel, wanting to have 2 tight ends on the field. They have Cole Kmet and Colston Loveland now. And so then who comes off? Is it a Dunze? Is it DJ Moore? Is it Burden with lesser blocking type of skills in that sense? It is a lot of mouths to feed, but I also do love when just one of the brightest minds in the game hand selects his pieces. So I do think both these guys are winners in Loveland and Burden just because of that ringing endorsement from a great mind. I do worry, though, about the target competition and just seeing how it all shakes out, at least from a redraft perspective. But certainly in a dynasty, I think what you guys talk about, betting on talent is huge. And what I'm starting to try to do a little bit more in dynasty as well is like betting on talent, and then betting on talent that good offensive minds are betting on themselves at the NFL level. I like to see that play out. I think betting on coordinators now, betting on coaches is becoming far more valid than it might have been even 10 years ago. Betting on the guys that Sean McVay likes. If he sees something, he knows the roles he wants to craft for this. Okay, I'm going to go for it. I do think Ben Johnson has earned that. I think Liam Cohen is on his way to earning that. In terms of a select few type of offensive minds that I will also, in addition to talent, betting on those guys that those guys want. I do still think it comes down to Tet versus Travis as the number one in this rookie class. I do still lean with Travis. I'm with CJay. I think just a little more explosive with a guy that's going to know how to generate those explosive opportunities better than anybody. But man, you do make a compelling case. Like, who is Tet competing with? We have seen his offensive coordinator there, or the head coach rather, Mike Evans with Tampa Bay, DK Metcalf with Seattle. He's used those big body wide receivers very, very well. And so, Tet's that next mold. A lot of the comps for him was Mike Evans with a little more speed potentially. So this could be that perfect. What's that?
I was going to say Drake London was the popular comp for
Drake
Tet.
London's the very popular one as well. Perfect type of that mold that they've used so well in that style there. I think they wanted Leggett to be that. He just wasn't. I think Tet can absolutely be that. I just don't know if I buy Bryce Young yet. I saw some good glimpses last year. Certainly had his stretches. I'm not fully there.
So I don't buy Bryce Young either necessarily, but I do think he's capable of just at least being like a starting quarterback. He was top, as gross as this is to say, he was top 5 in big time throw rate last year.
I don't care.
We're just
I know you don't care. I know you don't care. That's Tet's game, though. Tet's game is contested catches. It is no separation. Very little like his route tree isn't elite. It's not expanded. It's gonna be him using his physicality and making contested catches. That's what Tet is.
I also think Tet was underrated by the time of the draft. It started off as, entering the season, it was he's 101 for receiver, and then it turned into he's kind of big, whatever. But when you actually watch him, I think he separates pretty well, and he's actually better after the catches.
He's gotten a lot better. At least this past season, he was.
He also, when Arizona's coaching staff changed, right before the season, the whole offense fell apart. His quarterback sucked. He's 5'6". he was in a horrible situation last year on a team that like they had a ton of potential going into the season. They were going to be around like ranked like 15 or so and like projected for like a playoff spot. And then once their head coach left for Washington, like a few months before the season, it was a disaster in Arizona last year. I think Ted was like mostly affected by it.
Absolutely could have been. And yeah, I think he is a lot more fluid than he gets credit for. Not just that classic big body only contestant, very good at that stuff, but he can separate quite well. And again, Dave Canales, I talked about how well I think Liam Cohen will use a guy like Travis Hunter in that skill set. Well, Dave Canales, again, those big bodies, the Mike Evans, the DK Metcalf, both had career years under Canales. So I think it's all both great fits. And I think both these guys, you can't really go wrong. I still lean Hunter if I had to pick one today, but it's a close by, 103, 104, whatever you want to go with it. Those two guys are going to be beasts for sure. And the last wide receiver winner I want to talk about, and again, I guess this goes with similar to RJ Harvey being 24, Tre Harris being 23. I have no issue with the older guys. And I think Tre Harris, I get it. I know why people adjust for age and all that. I think this guy's an absolute monster, and I'm going to play into Mo's here's comments where he says you got to say the yards per route number for Tre Harris, the YPRR. It's absolutely insane. The only receiver in Power 5 history to average over 5 yards per route run just from any part of the field. But in addition, it also averages 5.13 yards per route as an outside receiver too. You kick him inside of the slot, also over 5 yards per route as well. So didn't matter where he lined up, but a lot of people will get those high, gaudy yards per route run numbers because of those design looks. Not this guy, though, doing it on the outside, doing it against man coverage. Absolute animal is Tre Harris. Says he's out for defensive back souls. Love those type of quotes. I'm a sucker for that stuff as well. But then you ultimately get to this landing spot, and I get it. Ladd McConkey, the number one there. I won't argue that. But they are ripe for a number 2 wide receiver here. I don't buy Quentin Johnston. Yeah, he had a couple big games there last year. But I just look at that more so like, hey, if Quentin Johnston can do some solid things, I think Tre Harris is at least 1, if not 2 to 3 steps above what Quentin Johnston is as a wide receiver. So the most complete, one of the most complete X receivers in this class. I think he's going to work perfectly with that more slot build of Ladd McConkey. I love Tre Harris. And again, you come at me with the age stuff, come at me with the injury stuff. It's valid, but I just see that next kind of Ole Miss big body beast coming in here and doing good things from the NFL level. And who better do that within a cannon arm like Justin Herbert? So I think Tre Harris was a huge winner. Maybe I'm just praising my best ball bags because he is my actual highest owned player as of right now in best ball. But I love it. This was exactly where I wanted to see him land, and I'm so happy he's there. What do you guys think?
Well, I was just going to read off his yards per route run. He had 5.12 yards per route run.
Insane.
Like a good yards per route run is like 2 yards per route run. Like that is insane. That's absurd.
The next closest is Devonta Smith on outside routes with 3.6. That's Devonta Smith, like a very good NFL receiver, is 3.6 when he was in college, like elite top 5 pick type of receiver, and he blows him out by nearly 2 yards per route run. It's a big deal. This is impressive.
Devonta is like one of the best college receivers ever. At least
he might be the best college receiver ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was gonna say Tre Harris. I had him wide receiver 7 pre-draft. No change for me, none. I think he's perfect right there where he is. I would still probably take Egbuka just in the long run, dynasty wise. I'd still probably take Jayden Higgins. I really like Jayden Higgins. I think that's a great landing spot in Houston for him. And I do think Quentin Johnston might have more of a role than you think, and they also have McConkey too. So honestly, Tre Harris is kind of like Quentin Johnston a little bit, like slightly. Obviously not. They were both great college receivers. Okay, Quentin Johnston was a good college receiver. So.
He plays so much softer than his size, though. I always thought that guy was kind of a little bitch, an alligator arm and stuff. Tre Harris is more of a man.
Quentin Johnston had a problem with the body catching. A lot of body catching.
Just catching in general.
Just catching the ball.
Like if he wasn't catching like a 2-yard drag route and like running after the catch.
Wait, QJ kind of had a good year though this year, somewhat.
He's okay.
That's what gives me hopes too, is because I don't think he's very good, but he did have a pretty good year. And like I just picture Tre Harris taking that job, being better at it, and putting up better numbers as a result.
Yeah, maybe. I haven't changed. I had Harris at receiver 6, and he's stuck in my receiver 6. So yeah, I'm happy with the spot.
So another thing too that was to take into account, at least with all these other prospects, is he also had Jackson Dart too, and he can sling it.
And that offense is just very like.
Ole Miss was first in passing grade this past year amongst all teams, and they were 10th in 2023. So those that is reflected in Tre Harris's box score stats and everything. An
interesting nugget on that too, though, Tanner, is the games that Tre Harris missed. You could see that noticeable, just like statistical dip, and also just in general performance from Jackson Dart. Like, he seemed a little bit more lost. That was his go-to guy, and I love Dart. I'm not hating on him. We're going to talk about him as a winner, but you could really feel the absence of Tre Harris there when he did miss time, and so that's part of why I also still really love this guy too.
And that's a fair point, but I mean, every quarterback is gonna be a little more overwhelmed losing their wide receiver 1 or not having their wide receiver 1, right?
Sure.
And, the other Ole Miss wide receivers, just kind of to mention, are like Antoine Wells Jr. and some other guy that got drafted that probably shouldn't have. But
I know what you're talking about.
I don't remember what his name was.
We were making fun of it yesterday. I forget it.
Yeah, I was like, wait, they drafted a wide receiver 3 from Ole Miss and not Antoine Wells? Like, Wells was actually not bad. Like, he's like pretty decent. He's just like 24 or 25 or something like that. But yeah, like that is something that I took into account too, is just Tre's age. And the offense that he was in, Tet and Luther were in a lot worse offenses, like horribly, way worse. Travis was in a great offense. Colorado was like top 15 in passing grade both the last 2 years. So Travis definitely benefited from that too, as well. But yeah, I like Tre Harris. Like, just because I have him wide receiver 7 does not mean I don't like him. I like Tre Harris, but I like 6 other guys better. So
yeah, and you mentioned one of them, and I don't know if CJay, you still have this guy above him. Somebody I consider a loser, and you brought up Jayden Higgins today. I certainly think Jaylin Noel was the bigger loser of the 2 teammates from college. Both of them landing with the Texans here. I have a hard time considering Higgins a huge winner, though. You land with the Texans. CJ Stroud, up for debate right now how valid he is. I think he's going to bounce back. I think we're going to see more rookie year, more resemblance to that rookie year than what we saw last year in a better Rams-inspired scheme. My big issue is, though, you got Nico Collins. Nobody's demanded more targets per route than Nico Collins across these past 2 years. An absolute magnet for the ball. So whether it ends up being Noel, who I do think is very talented. Dane Brugler had Jaylin Noel actually ahead of Jayden Higgins in his pre-draft rankings. So I don't even think it's a guarantee that Higgins will actually outplay and start over Noel, who I think brings a little bit more down the field. I don't know. We'll see there. But even if he does, whoever does end up winning that number 2 receiver role, assuming that it's not Christian Kirk even right now, it's just such a congested system that you're still just fighting for whatever Nico Collins is leaving on the table for you, which isn't typically all that much. So I do like both of these guys. I was hoping certainly that they would separate. We could kind of see what they would do away from each other. And then they go and land behind a true alpha. I just don't love where either of these Iowa State guys landed. And I do have Tre Harris above both of them now at this point. But maybe I should be betting more on talent there. I'm not sure. Let me know what you guys think. Are they actual losers? Or why, Tanner, you said you like Jayden Higgins here. Why are you not worried about Nico? Or why do you think he's clearly going to beat out Noel? Like, what do you think on that sense?
So so a lot of people debated Noel and Higgins. I have Higgins well over Noel. Like, okay. It's not even close.
You're probably the lowest I know of anyone on Noel.
Yeah, I might be. They're both both athletic freaks. But Higgins was better in literally every one of my metrics than Noel, like by a significant margin. Enough to almost make me think about putting Jayden Higgins over Egbuka. And you could even chat about that now because Egbuka is literally going to be the wide receiver 3 for the Buccaneers. So, enjoy your Egbuka share, CJay. I will not. I'm going to be fading.
We have him coming up. Egbuka will be up soon.
But anyways, Higgins, just to kind of go through, he was 7th in rec yards per team pass attempt in this class, 8th in rec yards market share. To compare that to Noel was 15th in rec yards per team pass attempt and 19th in rec yards market share. And as for down ratings, breakout age, stuff like that, also Higgins clears. Noel had a 36th percentile breakout age, so broke out very late in his college career, 63rd percentile college dominator rating, and a 78th percentile college target share. Higgins is far more intriguing with 76th percentile college dominator rating, a 93rd percentile college target share. So it was Higgins commanding that Iowa State offense, not Noel. Noel was a great counterpiece to that offense, but Higgins is 6'4" and 215, and he runs a 4.47, which was just a little bit short of Noel, who's quite smaller. So I think Higgins can absolutely command a target share in Houston. I'm not super high on CJ Stroud. I don't love him, but I do think that he's capable of commanding a passing offense, and Nico has benefited from that. Higgins can be a good another outside guy with Nico. Jaylin Noel, I'm very sure that he is going to be behind Higgins, not just because of draft capital reasons, but just because of also how their Iowa State careers went. So I am without a doubt higher on Higgins. I might even I'm thinking about maybe moving Higgins above Egbuka potentially.
Ooh. Interesting. Well, I know we're going to talk about Egbuka as a loser. CJ, do you want to add any thoughts on Higgins and Noel before we move to him, or do you want to use that to transition right to Egbuka?
Yeah, I don't really, as we said earlier, I don't really love the fit for either. Higgins is he kind of reminds you of Nico a little bit, like the bigger body receivers. They kind of, I feel like they both play an X more so. I mean, obviously you can move Nico around a bit more, and then Noel too. He didn't really do as much in college. He didn't produce at that level, and he was more of the late bloomer, like the Senior Bowl. Everyone loved him. He tore up one-on-ones, which are the easiest things to do in the world. You just have an entire field to play with no pass rush. And you can just dance around for 5 minutes and get open. And that's everyone breaks Twitter over that stuff. So I did like Noel, but I would go Higgins between the two of them.
Yeah, I do too as well. In 80, Noel more of that slot. 73% of his routes came out of the slot, whereas Higgins 83% were out wide. And so if Christian Kirk, is actually going to be a factor there, Higgins, you have a lot more flexibility where you put him, how he gets on the field, better blocker as well. So I do think it's clearly Higgins over Noel. I think Noel is the clearer loser. I still just don't know that either are going to be ultimately that productive when you have Nico Collins. You really need CJ Stroud to get back to that rookie year where he was throwing for 400 yards a game and creating a pie that was well worth sharing for many mouths. Maybe he gets there. I don't know that I have full faith that he does. So I don't consider either of them winners necessarily. I consider both a downgrade. And like I said, I bumped Tre Harris above both Iowa State boys. But we alluded to the fact that Egbuka was also a loser in terms of where he landed. The third wide receiver off the board, kind of surprisingly, I think, for many, lands with the Bucs. Crowded situation. I know, CJ, you're an Ohio State guy, and even you could put away your biases, and you kind of recognize why this is not an optimal spot. Why do you consider Egbuka a loser here?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to redraft, he's probably cooked this year. It's going to be in that JSN situation where you have, the two guys. I know they're both getting older. Godwin's coming off that major injury. The Buccaneers just also paid him. So they, went into a bidding war against the Patriots and overpaid him. And I don't know. There's you have Evans, who's going to be 32. Godwin's coming off the injury. And then you also have Jalen McMillan, who also plays in the slot, and he actually balled out last year. I think to end the season, he had 7 touchdowns in 8 games. So I want to say,
yeah, he's a top 12 wide receiver for that last
he
6
killed it.
weeks.
He killed it. My
yeah,
biggest.
so now you have three slot guys that are playing on the same field. So I didn't understand when I started seeing mocks like the day before the draft of them going after receiver. It just didn't make much sense to me. I do see wanting to have the future with Evans' age and Godwin's history. But dynasty-wise, though, I do like Egbuka because of those reasons. It is kind of like a JSN situation where you have Tyler Lockett aging out and Egbuka can move right into Godwin's role eventually. And even Evans, he can play on the outside. He did play more slot at Ohio State, but he does have the ability to play on the outside. Was a 5-star, tested better than I thought athletically. And he did actually play well down the field. They started using a little bit more. It's tough there because you're competing with a bunch of 5-stars. And so he's never going to put up the best stats, although he did finish as Ohio State's leading receiver in the history of the school.
All-time, right? They're all-time leading receiver, right?
Exactly. I mean, it did take him 4 years, and he was hurt his junior year.
I was going to say that's because all the receivers get drafted early.
Yeah, if he came out last year after the McCord season, it wouldn't have went well for him. But yeah, I would say redraft, I would fade him as much as possible. But dynasty, I still have him receiver. Where is he? I actually have him receiver 3 over Luther. So that's where I am with Emeka.
I'd probably like I said, I'm between Higgins and him. So I don't know. But I do agree. It is kind of like I think I mentioned that to you yesterday. Actually, this Emeka situation is very similar to JSN. He is not JSN. So that
I was just going to say, except that he's not JSN.
Except that he's not JSN. And a lot of people talked a lot of shit on JSN after his rookie season. And I held the hope. And he, I believe, is going to be pretty good. So, I mean, I don't know how it's going to look with Cup, obviously. But, yeah, Emeka is a current loser. Dynasty, maybe I'd buy later on in the season after he, doesn't produce. Could probably get him cheaper. But, yeah, I don't like Jaylin McMillan. So I wouldn't be worried about McMillan in the sense that he's going to overtake Egbuka or whatever. If those two duke it out in the future, Egbuka is going to win, in my opinion. McMillan, I would sell if you could. I don't know if you can now, but if you can, I would sell Jaylin McMillan, not Ted McMillan, but Jaylin McMillan. But yeah, Egbuka is going to be a loser for me. I think I might actually put Higgins over him.
Yeah, it's a tricky one because I actually do like McMillan too, and I like what I saw down the stretch. The Tampa Bay Bucks vacated exactly 0 targets from last year, and we talk about Egbuka, and what was holding him back was he was always surrounded by such good receivers. And fair, yes, they were Olave and JSN, and this year that the kid that would have been number 5 overall probably if he come out. The next Julio Jones,
number 1 overall.
Yeah, number 1 maybe. Ridiculous. So he's been playing with some serious talent, but again, you're talking Godwin, you're talking Evans. I like McMillan, so maybe not. I know he's certainly not in that tier of guys, but this is a crowded situation that did not open up any volume. So I just don't have any sense of where Buka's role is going to come from early on. Maybe but him and Godwin are so repetitive and redundant as a skill set. So maybe this is reflective on him. Not the knee's not recovering quite as well. But even then, I like what I saw from McMillan. So I don't see where Egbuka fits in. It was just a very head-scratching pick to me. The one dynasty thing that I do love about this is the Bucs have been an efficient offense. We know that Baker Mayfield looks solid. He loves targeting those slot receivers as well. So if he does rise up and sees a role here, it's going to be a good situation. And he does have the talent to fill that role nicely. But he just, I don't know. It's just too many mouths to feed for me, both certainly for redraft and even in dynasty. I think it's going to be too crowded. And we're never going to get a true, even usable wide receiver 2 season. I think it'd be one of those inconsistent wide receiver 3s at best throughout his career. I know Mike Evans, he's going to be gone within the next 5 years or so, most likely. But even then, is that where Egbuka goes in? Probably not. Godwin and him are going to be the ones competing, and Godwin's not that old yet. So, yeah, I'm with you. Big loser for me on this. I was hoping he'd go to the Packers. I thought he could have been a humongous slam dunk if he was their number 1 receiver. So many teams he could have gone to. This was probably the only one where I love the player, I love the skill set, just do not see where he fits in short and long term
I was going to say Godwin was on a heater last year.
Wide receiver 2 before he went down in points per game.
Yeah, he was like on a barn burning heater. And then Mike Evans, I think McMillan benefited from that too. That's the main. That's a huge factor in me thinking that Jalen McMillan is a sell, is because he got most of that opportunity via injury. So when Godwin comes back, they just paid him. I don't know how that's going to look. And a lot of his production was touchdown dependent. Like you said, he had 7 touchdowns in like 8 games. Crazy stretch. So I don't think that touchdown streak is sustainable. I don't think he's going to score a touchdown every week next year or in the future. So, but yeah, this is interesting because Emeka, it does get in the JSN spot, but he's not JSN. And he's not close either. I don't think.
I don't think he's that far behind Jason. He was a more highly touted recruit out of high school. That wasn't even close. He was going against Jeremiah Smith last year, which is an alien. It'd be wide receiver 1.
Yeah, but that was before Jackson Smith did what he did in his sophomore year.
Yeah, and then he had Marv the year before that, and then he had Kyle McCord last year. It was a disaster. But no, I don't think he's that far behind Jason.
Now I'd say he is.
Yeah, I guess it is what it is. But yeah, either way, he is a loser for redraft, and that's like the whole point.
No, so I'm going to keep it moving.
Yeah,
go ahead.
For sure. Redraft dynasty wise.